Hey guys, what's up? Here for UFC Vegas 69 Andrade Blanchfield. Going to give you some quick picks for this card because I don't really want to be diving too much into this card. This may be one of the overall worst UFC cards that you possibly ever lay eyes on. So I'm not going to spend much of your time with this one here. And tread lightly if you're betting on this one here because there is some spots where it's a little bit in fact it's very sketchy because there's a lot of fighters in this card that the standard of the UFC is like drastically dipped when you have people that are on this card on this in the UFC. It's just not good. So let's quickly get into it. I don't want to take too much of your time here. I'm going to go into this tab here. So let's start off at the bottom here. We've got Juancamillo Ronderos 4-0 against Clayton Carpenter 6-0. I really like the Clayton Carpenter side here. I've got a parlay which I really had to kind of plug my nose and really just bash on and make this here. And it is a super chalky parlay, and I'm not one of these ones that kind of likes to kind of play the major chalk. I like to try and get round about your minus 200s up to your minus 300s. And both guys are in there, but it's a very green looking parlay. Clayton Carpenter is going to be the first one in that there. Juancamillo, I don't think has any. I just don't know why he's in the UFC. When I watched that Eric Shelton fight there, I don't know how he won that fight against an ex-UFC vet, and then he came in there on short notice against David Dvorak and got submitted. What I have seen from Clayton Carpenter, an MMA lab kind of fighter, this fight here against Edgar Chavez, I think Chavez, he came through some adversity, something that I like to see in a young fighter because his previous fights, this was a beautiful knockout inside the first like 15 seconds, and then there was a submission where he went down the knee bar and got that. But he came through a bit of adversity in that fight where he got hit with some big shots. There was some flying knees. He got hit with his eye, kind of blasted up a little bit. And what I've seen from Juancamillo, I mean, he's very, very small. Good cardio. I will give him that. He can go a solid 15 minutes. I just don't think he should be in the UFC. I think there's more to Clayton Carpenter. And I think he'll show it in this one here and come through, win a pretty comprehensive decision in that one there. Who we got next? AJ Fletcher against Themba Gorimbo. Another guy, I have no idea, because I thought, did this guy get signed off the Dana White Contender Series? Went into his record, and then decided to go down the rabbit hole of watching some of his fights. And this guy, to me, is not good. Now, I know this has come from a guy that kind of makes videos on fighters and such. I'm not claiming that AJ Fletcher is this superstar fighter, and he's very, very young in his career, coming off 2 L's to Matt Semelsberger and Anchalusa. I thought he fought really hard, actually, in this fight here. And in this one here, he actually got a takedown, I think it was in the 3rd round, against Matt Semelsberger. Very, very short reach for the division. But I've seen this guy one-punch knockout. Dave Mazzani caught him coming in, laid him out. I think his process with his striking, he overreaches. The one thing that I really did like about his whole entire game is his ground and pound, but his takedowns aren't good. And some of the guys that he's fought, like low caliber opposition, this one here, he was on his back, didn't have a clue how to get off his back. And in this fight here, he really just took the guy down and was blasting him with big shots. So I've picked AJ Fletcher. I've got a parlay of AJ Fletcher and Clayton Carpenter, I think for like minus 110. Like I said, a very not your best looking parlay you're ever going to see, but I think there's 2 spots here that they can come in. AJ can come in and get his UFC first UFC win. He is coming in short notice, which is not good with a guy with not the greatest cardio. But this guy just doesn't. The Gorimbo just doesn't impress me one iota. I think that he's. I don't know why the UFC have signed him. I really, really don't. So I'm picking AJ Fletcher. I'm actually going to pick him via knockout in this one. I think he's going to catch the chin when Gorimbo comes in and catch him with something there. Ovince Preux against Phillipe Lins. Oh, this is really tough one because Ovince Preux fought the ghost of Shogun Hua and did not look good at all, in my opinion. I know he got a win a very, very close split decision. I just don't think that was a good look for him. And before that, he got beat up by Tanner Boza, got knocked out by Jamal Hill, and you can't really take that away too much from Phillipe Lins in the UFC. Has just not impressed me one iota. Not much output, doesn't really have overall much punching power. He is a BJJ black belt, but I don't think that's really going to work against a guy like OSP. Really want nothing to kind of do with this fight in a betting wise, but I think I think I will lean with OSP to win a very bad decision in that one there. This fight here is one I'm looking forward to. This is probably actually the fight of the night that I'm looking forward to the most. Here we've got Jamal Emmers against Khusien Askhabov in the featherweight division here. This Askhabov kid is someone I actually I remember watching this kid way back in 2015. And one of the tweets I put out, I think it was 2016, was this kid, when he makes it to the UFC, is going to be a problem for some guys. But he kind of went into hiding the last 3 years. We've not seen him. Not really. I don't really know why he hasn't really fought in those 3 years. I know he's been training at ATT, Tiger Muay Thai. I know there's some people that talk very, very highly with this kid. He surrounds himself with really top class fighters and has done for years. Now his record at 23-0, he hasn't fought the greatest competition. I will put out there. You can't watch his last few fights, but I remember actually watching them live because this is the guy him and his brother, Hassan Askhabov, is someone I kept my eye on coming through that Ukrainian WWFC promotion, because this Hussein guy was one I had my eye on. I put him in that video a few years back. I said, this is the guy you need to watch once he moves into the UFC. And I think he's overall pretty good in a lot of areas, and he's very kind of opportunistic with some heel hooks that you'll see in some of his tape. He throws really hefty leg kicks, and he can wrestle. I don't think his offensive wrestling's overly great, but I think once he gets into grappling situations, he can find a way. I've seen him be reversed in that a little bit, but this is a massive step up to really anything that he's faced. But I think he's got a good matchup in Jamal Emmers. Jamal Emmers has always been a guy that I think he's got a lot of things that I actually really like, but there's a lot of things I really don't like. I think he gets overconfident in spots. I think his fight IQ lacks. I think his striking's not overly great. I think he's kind of throws without real purpose when he shots. And like I say, his IQ can let him down in some spots big time. And like I say, I think that he may find himself kind of outside the UFC very, very shortly. Like I said, I think Hussein, if he's been training, which it looks like he has been in the last 3 years, I think those 3 years, hopefully, he's made some big gaps, big jumps in his skill gaps. But he's with guys like Movsar Evloev, so he's training with some really good guys, and he's along with his brother and so on. I'm looking forward to this, and I will probably, if the line comes down, I'll probably end up having a bet on Askhabov. I probably know a little bit more than a lot of people do, because like I said, I've been watching this guy. You look at his record. I mean, he fought a lot back in the days against, like I say, not top level opposition. But I remember going back in and watching these fights live way back in 2015. I remember watching this fight live in 2016. So I know who this guy is, and I think he's a really solid talent. But like I say, his record isn't great. This is a big jump up in caliber and opposition. But I think he's got the skills to win this fight. I don't like the fact he's at 145 against probably a bigger guy in Emmers here. But like I say, the line's coming down. He's like minus 130 in the UK. If I can get anything below minus 125, I'll probably bet him. That might be a little bit of a kind of fan pick, because I am a fan of this kid, but I'm looking forward to seeing him in the UFC and seeing what he can give us in the UFC. So I'm going to pick Askhabov. I think he's got an opportunity of a finish, more likely a decision. Lina Lansberg against Mayra Bueno Silva. I like Bueno Silva here. Will not be touching anything betting wise on her. I think she's the better striker, the more power. She plants her feet. She's got the better jiu-jitsu. Just don't come out here and kind of headhunt. Try and mix up a little bit if you can clinch up a little bit. Just be careful of the strikes that Lansberg can throw with her elbows, with her knees, and try and get this girl to the ground. But for the most points in her the UFC career, she's never really attempted takedowns. She's kind of got stuff off her back. So I don't know whether it's going to be one of these things where she's going to come out here and kind of look for takedowns. She doesn't look to me like that type of fighter. But she's riding 2 fights. When Yanan Wu via decision and Stephanie Egger via armbar there. That you seen that was a few months back, where Lina is really kind of on her last legs in the UFC, and this might be the last time we see her. So I've got Mayra Bueno Silva to win that one there. Nazim Sadykov against Evan Elder. I think this is a really close fight. I like what I see from Nazim, though. I think he's a really solid fighter, but I think Evan Elder's he's 4 or 5 fights short of kind of being in the UFC. I think if he had those 4 or 5 fights, I think with a little bit more process, I think he'd be a bit of a dangerous fighter. But he is coming in here with a full camp. He's dropping back down to 155, the division that he's known for fighting in. This was just a short notice one there where he was getting taken down and really just laid upon there. But he's also not fought the greatest caliber opposition that you see. And where you look at Nazim fights out of New York, the Cerro Longo camp, Law MMA, gets taken down but can get back to his feet. I think he's a very, very clean striker, good cardio, and I just think he's got a little bit too much for Evan Elder right now. So I'm taking Nazim Sadykov for that one there. Jim Miller against Alexander Hernandez is next up here, and I am not picking Alexander Hernandez here. I'm going to go with the old boy Jim Miller. Never been the biggest fan of Alexander Hernandez. I think that he's got a huge win over Beneil Dariush, which even since then, I don't think he's looked even great in those spots there. I think I remember betting him against OAM, and I didn't think he looked great in that fight, and I've just not really been impressed with him ever since. This guy only fought, I want to say, a couple of months ago. Yeah, geez, not even 2 months ago, or around about 2 months ago. And he got his ass whooped in that fight against Billy Quarantillo in the middle part of that fight. So I'm kind of surprised they're letting him back in here on short notice. Jim Miller, he's on a 3-fight win streak, wins over Cowboy, Nicholas Motta. A lot of people are going against him there. I think I was one of those people as well. And he turned around and shows that he's still got it there. And Eric Gonzalez not really taking too much away from that, because Eric Gonzalez is pretty low level and Jim Miller's got all the experience in the world to kind of deal with fighters like that. The first round is going to be a massive, massive test for Jim Miller. If he can survive that, then I think as we go into rounds 2 and 3, if Jim's got enough in the tank, I think he can put it on this kid. I think he can tie him up a little bit with some of his grappling, but you're going to have the big gorilla and Alexander Hernandez looking to come forward and really try and maybe put it on him, try and find that chin, take the durability away. But I'm going to rock with Jim Miller, and I'm probably going to, I really want to bet him plus 200. I think if he can survive, I think he can teach this kid a little thing. I think that Alexander Hernandez might be a fighter that you see in the PFL in the future, because I don't think he's UFC caliber, in all honesty. But I'm not saying he couldn't win this fight, because he's got all the tools to maybe hurt the old kind of Jim Miller that's kind of the uber veteran of the UFC at this point. But I'm going to pick, as a pure pick, Jim Miller. Absolutely is going to be a pick for me. William Knight against Marcin Prachnio. These run of fights, these next 3 fights are absolutely ridiculous. William Knight, like I say, all it seems to be is that you go on Instagram and he's weight work and he's lifting. You don't see a hell of a lot with him getting better in the gym, like his skill set. Then he's coming into fights and missing weight massively, not looking good whatsoever. And like I say, I don't know whether he's kind of heart's in it, but like I say, this is a do or die kind of fight for him, in my opinion. Then you've got Prachnio on the other side coming off that L to Phillipe Lins. Before that, 2 wins over Khalil Roundtree, which Khalil, he can be a bit of an annoying fighter, because you don't really know which one's going to turn up. When he does turn up, he's amazing, and when he doesn't, he loses to people like Marcin Prachnio. Not going to spend too much time on this. I'm going to go with William Knight. I think he's going to maybe use some clinch work here. If this gets into a kind of open stand-up fight, you probably have to maybe take someone like Prachnio to maybe land some more shots. But I think Thick Willie can maybe push him against the cage, kind of win minutes through that, land some dirtier strikes. But like I say, I've not really looked into it all that much, if I'm being honest with you. So William Knight is a pick. in that one there. Josh Parisian against Jamal Pogues. Oh, I'm going to pick Josh Parisian. There's obviously some red warning signs with this guy because he's had heart problems and he's had this and he's had that. Jamal Pogues, to me, a guy like the UFC standard is so low in my opinion. This is the guy that is a 205er. They tried to put him in there last time out against this guy. I want to say this guy's maybe 185, maybe even a 170-pound fighter. And all he does is really just pop out a jab. No real kind of push in his game. And you'll see his wins here, a lot of them via decision. Second time in the Dana White Contender Series, I thought that they gave him a kind of layup and he didn't take it there. Where I'm picking Josh Parisian is if he can find a way to get on top, I think he will stop Jamal Pogues, in all honesty. And the line's pretty high. I mean, he's plus 200, so you don't have to put much on to get a little bit of profit back. Coming off a win over one of the worst guys the UFC probably had in the heavyweight division, Alain Baudot. But like I say, there is some red warning signs with this guy with cardio. He is going to be the bigger guy, the more in shape for a heavyweight, where Pogues might not be like that. But like I say, I'm going to pick Josh Parisian. He is the dog in this fight. I think that the line should be a little bit closer, but be careful when you're betting some of these fights. I said this at the beginning. This one here, Zach Pauga against Jordan Wright. Watched an interview with Jordan Wright saying that he's going to come out here and wrestle, which is interesting because I think that's the worst possible way for him to win a fight, because I think that Zach Pauga trains with good guys. I think I've seen him in posts with Curtis Blades, who does a lot of wrestling with. So I don't think that's really going to work out too well. We all know that Jordan Wright's chin is not good at all, but he is dangerous and he comes out to finish the fight. And I still think this is probably what he has to do, is come out and just try and blitz this guy. He could get chinned, but he could also hurt. I think if he was to get this guy hurt, I think he could stop him. This whole wrestling narrative, I just don't think it works out for him. He's on his last legs in the UFC. Got knocked out against Bruno Silva. Got submitted by Marco Robario, and he got knocked out by Dusko. Where Zach's come off that loss to Muhammad Usman, which he was fighting an okay fight, but then got chinned himself, got knocked out. As a pick, Zach Pauga is going to be the pick. I think that he knocks out Jordan Wright in the mid part of this fight. But yeah, I want nothing to do with that fight betting wise. And the main event, this was a really interesting main event to look into. I was actually really looking forward to seeing Erin Blanchfield against Taila Santos. I thought that was the perfect matchup for her to see where she is right now. Then we found out last Saturday that she's out. And Jessica Andrade stepped in very short notice. She only fought, a month ago, 3 weeks ago against Lauren Murphy, and she absolutely blitzed and destroyed her. But I really dug deep into this fight because Erin Blanchfield, to me, she will 100% be a world champion one day. From what I see, and at the age she is, if she keeps progressing with her striking, and if it catches up anywhere near to what her ground game is, she's going to be a champion. She's going to be a dominant champion and win some big fights and have some big moments in the UFC. But this is a humongous step up from your JJ Aldridge to Molly McCann to a former champion who's fought the best of the best. When she's in positions like this, she kills people. Lauren Murphy, Lemos, I think, is far more dangerous as a striker. And like I say, she beats these girls like your Cynthia Calvillo's, your Caitlin Chukagian. She can hurt a lot of people. So I literally went back 10 years, and some of these fights don't really matter because they were at 135. They were like 10 years ago. But I went in to see all these people that are trying to take Jessica Andrade down, and you had Liz Carmouche, who just really muscled her to the ground, got a trip in one of her takedowns. Raquel Pennington kind of got the body lock, which is something that you've seen Valentina do in her fight, was predominantly used the body lock to get the fight to the ground. It says she's got a 73% takedown defense. That's wrong, because that should be higher. Watch the Tisha Torres fight. For some reason, they gave Tisha Torres 2 takedowns, and there's no takedowns in that fight. So it should be a little bit higher. The way to get this girl to the ground is through body locks, in my opinion, or well-timed double legs. when you look at Erin, she got that kind of well-timed double leg against someone like Molly McCann. That was just a travesty that fight was even put together. I think I tweeted afterwards, like, who is making that matchup? They're obviously building off Molly, two big knockouts, and they're going to New York, and they've got Erin Blanchfield here. And Erin Blanchfield just really just brutalized her with a crucifix and then got a nasty-looking Kimura. But this is a massive, massive step up. I've seen people all week talk about this fight, JJ Aldridge. She was losing that fight, in my opinion. But I think it was super close. They're like, oh, she's getting outstruck by JJ Aldridge, and she got taken down. Those takedowns really meant nothing because she popped straight back up to her feet. Nothing really came to fruition with them. But she was also, I think, in my opinion, having success with some of her striking. JJ was just showing a nice long jab, was only to hit her with like single shots. Jessica Andrade is not going to come in here and throw singular shots. She's going to come forward, blitzing 4 or 5 punch combinations, looking to hurt you. And she's got the power to hurt a lot of people, and she's did it to a lot of people. But in that aspect, that may work into the favour of getting Erin Blanchfield these takedowns. Now, she can get down and she can have some top time. That's how I think she wins this fight. Get some top time. And then I think Jessica Andrade has some quit on her where she will stop. She'll just stop fighting. You've seen that in the Valentina fight. Now I know that's Valentina. She's the champion, and she really kind of demoralized her with those takedowns. And she really couldn't. She kept getting back to her feet, but she kept getting taken down with that body lock. Valentina is the top of that division. Erin Blanchfield is on her way up there. If you go back and watch some of her other fights as well, Tracy Cortez got some takedowns on her. So it would not surprise me if Jessica Andrade has some slams in this fight. If they get into situations where Erin's trying to get a hold of something, she might just throw around. It's just, I'm really struggling with this because I really want to pick Erin Blanchfield. I think she's got a serious game. Like I said, I think she is going to be a world champion. But when you jump from JJ Aldridge 8 months ago, when you jump from Molly McCann, who the girls, I think they're ranked maybe at the tail end. This is the girl that's predominantly going to always be in that top 3 of the division. She's going to fight champions. She's won the belt. She's going to be a Hall of Famer. When she's in this position, she usually does very well. But I think that Erin Blanchfield is going to have opportunities to win this fight. And earlier on in the week, I was kind of a little bit on Erin, and then I've kind of moved my stance kind of across to Jessica Andrade. I would actually prefer Erin to kind of win this fight because I think there is so much potential with the girl. But I just think right now, I think it's just not the right time. I thought the Santos fight was going to be really good for her. Honestly, I thought it was a fight she could roll in a lot easier than this one. But like I say, I'm not ruling out Erin Blanchfield whatsoever because I think if she can get some top time, she can maybe take the fight out of Jessica Andrade, and that maybe that's all she needs. And with that ground game that she has, with her jiu-jitsu, she could catch a submission in that one. But I'm going to pick Jessica Andrade to win this fight. It's hard to see it, but if it goes late, can I see her maybe wilting a little bit and Erin can maybe stay in that fight? I don't know. It's hard to tell. But like I say, as a pick, I'm going to pick Jessica Andrade for the win there. So, guys, was meaning this to be like less than 10 minutes or 10, 15 minutes. I'm 23 minutes in. I'm done. Back next week. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you have a good weekend, like I say, and trade lightly if you're betting these fights because they're not the greatest ones there. So all the very, very best. Take care. Enjoy the fights when they come around.